Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. We have 48 people, 198 people, 500 people.
Open the chat
Let's
box.
open the chat. Hey, everybody, let us know where you're coming in from. We are flying by the seat of our pants here. Just a little peek behind the curtain. Every time the team is ready to go, and then Leah and I log in at like 2:59, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're here. Let's get started. And everybody's all ready to go. So it's great to see everybody. Leah, who do you see in the chat that you want to call it?
We've got Isabel from Shahola, Pennsylvania, Resistance Wednesdays.
Love it. Brookline,
Jersey Shore.
Massachusetts, Jersey Shore.
Charlottesville, Townsend, Delaware, Gold Canyon, Arizona, Columbus, Ohio,
Great
Aspen,
farmers market
Colorado.
there.
Greenwood, Minnesota, Syracuse, New York, Manhattan, Target Majority, New York City. General Grant hello from General Grant in Clarkston, Washington. Prescott, Arizona.
Love Prescott.
Redwood
Rhymes with
City.
biscuit.
Yes. Fort Collins, Colorado, Pacifica, California. Oh, it's going too fast now. It's going too fast.
It's going the speed we like to see at this point of a what's the plan.
Exactly.
This is
Hey,
the sign.
shout out your election victories in the chat.
Yes, yeah. Let us know. Wait, if you had an election here that you're proud of, you want to shout out. Please let us know. There were a ridiculous number of successful elections on Tuesday.
Yeah, wherever
Proud to be California, says Carrie. Yes, indeed. And I would say the nation owes California a debt for the work they did this week, pushing back against the Texas gerrymandering. We're going to get into that and other celebrations. We got Naples, Florida. We've got Mikey Sherrill
Frogs out of
wins. Indianapolis, Indiana. Thank you all for fighting back against the gerrymandering there. We see you. We appreciate it. We know the Maryland Indivisibles are also pushing their governor and their state legislature. Thank you for pushing in Indiana.
Albany, New York. Marietta, Marietta, Ohio.
You know what? I like this from Taylor. Library funding passed.
Right.
That is awesome. I know a lot of focus gets on like the Prop 50s of the world, the Mikey Shiros and the Mamdanis. Love that. But this is also about getting funding for libraries, and we were successful across the board. We're going to go over just how widespread the victories were. Leah, should we get into it?
Let's go for it.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Ezra.
Leah.
And we are the co-founders of Indivisible. We are in this small room next to each other because we are married. And this is the best way we can talk to you at the same time without technological difficulties. We are here together to talk about how we fight for our democracy, how we fight against the fascists, what we are doing this moment that is real and impactful. We call it What's the Plan because we have a bias towards action. Yes, we all want to consume information that informs our decisions, but fundamentally, we are here to figure out what we do together to help push the ball forward. So this is a strategic conversation, and this is a tactical conversation, and this is a goals alignment conversation. This is a conversation between folks who are doing real work on the ground to fight for our democracy. And we're here to have that discussion. Leah, how do we do these conversations for folks who are brand new? Because yet again, for God knows how many weeks in a row, this is the biggest one of these we've done. So if you're brand new, here's how it goes. Leah, take it away.
Yeah, if you're brand new, the way that this is going to go is we're going to have some opening comments to talk about the news of the week, anything that we think is particularly important to pull out. But then the bulk of the conversation is Q&A that is live. You are going to submit your questions via the Q&A chat box on the bottom of the bar, or bottom bar. You can upvote the questions you want to see answered. We are going to take questions mostly from the top with a little bit of an eye towards making sure that there's some diversity of questions in there. If you're with an Indivisible group, say so in your question. We love to make sure that we're getting questions from folks across the movement. This is going to be recorded. The recording will be sent out to everyone who registered. We're also going to be posting links in the chat as we go along with action items, steps you can take, resources to check out. We're going to send all of those out. So if you miss them because the chat is going too fast, don't worry. They will come back to you in the end. We are going to keep doing these as we started these out as an experiment, but we have been doing them for almost a year now, and they continue to grow. So we're planning to keep them going for the immediate future. And just a note on respect in the chat box. Spaces like this, we are talking about hard stuff. We are talking about deeply personal stuff. It is normal to have really, really strong feelings about what we are covering here. We are here to lift each other up, and we ask that you try to keep the chat as constructive and as supportive as possible. We're going to have differences on strategy and tactics sometimes, but we work through those together in a constructive way. That is what makes us indivisible. That's foundational to our ability to organize together.
If Leah and I can disagree on goal strategies and tactics and still say married 10 years into doing this, I think we as a movement can do that too. Indeed. This is why we call ourselves Indivisible. One other reason why we call ourselves Indivisible, Obviously, this comes from the Pledge of Allegiance, but it comes from this basic idea that democracy is a participatory sport. I led off by saying, look, this is a bias. What's the plan is a bias towards what we do. The way we actually operationalize a lot of what we do together is in indivisible groups. As y'all know, there are 2,700 or so around the country. Every week, one of my favorite things to do is to call out brand new indivisible group leaders, of which there are many every single week. I limit myself to 10 so we can take questions and only one from any individual state, but I'm going to call out several now. Please give them some love in the chat and with your emojis. This is a people-powered movement. We need new people here. If we're just organizing among folks who have always been activists, who have always been fighting against this regime, we're not going to win. So we are trying to welcome new people into this. And those new people this week are Terrellyn in Indivisible Coachella. We've reached Coachella, California. Dee Dee with Loveland Indivisible in Loveland, Colorado. Laura with Indivisible Jax Springfield in Jacksonville, Florida. We've got Kayla with Indivisible Amplifying Metal. I love that name. Indivisible Amplifying Metal in Manuka, Illinois. Juliana, Bellingham, Massachusetts Indivisible with Bellingham, Massachusetts. Kirsten with Indivisible Black Mountain in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Crystal with Indivisible Jersey City in Jersey City, New Jersey. Mount Holly Springs Indivisible. That's Nicole, who has founded this with Mount Holly Springs, Pennsylvania. And finally, Donald with Indivisible Comal County in New Braunfels, Texas, which has a great water park now named Schlitterbahn. If you've never been, it's a treat. Welcome, brand new Indivisible group leaders. It's great to have you. And Leah, this is a special What's the Plan? Because we don't always get to start out by talking about one of the most historic election nights since we started, but this is one of those times where we get to talk about that. And as a reminder, folks, this regime succeeds by making you feel alone and hopeless. So I know we're not out of the woods yet. I know it's still a dangerous time, but celebrating our wins is an act of defiance. Being joyful about our people power is one of the greatest acts of resistance we can do. So you're damn right. We're going to celebrate what happened this week. Leah, let's talk about No Kings 3, as we're calling it.
Yeah, well, No Kings 3 was on Tuesday, and it was a show of force, y'all. We have been doing this for a while, and I can't think of another election cycle when we came as close as we did to simply running the table. Basically, everywhere that they've got data for shifted towards Democrats. Across the board, from really red to really blue areas, it was an across the board shift. I cannot cover every single victory that happened because the list is extraordinary, but I am just going to run through a few, right? California, huge win in response to the partisan redistricting, mid-decade redistricting in Texas. Proposition 50 was put forward. I know there are a ton of folks across our movement who have been knocking themselves out, getting the word out about this this initiative. It was considered a gamble when they put it on the ballot. And frankly, I think the fact that we headed into the night pretty confident in its passage was a testament to the extraordinary grassroots push to get out the word, because by the time we were even heading into election night, people felt pretty confident that it was going to pass. And indeed, 2 out of every 3 California voters supported the measure. Extraordinary.
When we started this, and not just us, but when the broader movement started, Texas was moving forward through redistricting. The Texas Dems in the legislature fled the state, and people said, well, why are you doing that? That's not going to have any impact. Ultimately, they're going to get it done anyway. Then they rang the alarm bell. And it was heard across the country, all the way to California. And people, when they were first talking about California, were saying, it's not going to happen. They'd have to do a vote. They can't just move in the legislature. It's ridiculous. Not going to win that. And here we are now. Incredible victory. And don't let anybody tell you this was inevitable. This happened because the movement pushed for it.
Yeah, this was like speed running from the impossible to unlikely to, I guess we could try that, but it would be a lot of work to, oh, it was inevitable. That's the cycle that we went through over the last 6 months. And it's in large part thanks to a grassroots that has demanded that electeds fight for us. Virginia, huge turnout, huge statewide sweep, 12 House of Delegates flips, 14 out of 16 wins for our targets in Virginia. Largest margin in history for a Democratic governor, first female governor of Virginia. Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, big win after some polling anxiety, and a General Assembly supermajority. Again, huge shout outs to and props to indivisible groups across Virginia and New Jersey. Oh my gosh, I know you all have been on this for so long, balancing No Kings, with all of the campaigning and all of the work that has gone into each of these races and all of the statewide and our state and local races that you have been running. Pennsylvania, I
Can I
think.
just say on New Jersey, my favorite thing was election night, watching Sean Hannity go from this is a toss-up, we might win this one, to saying, we were never going to win. New Jersey's a blue state. It was never going to be close.
That's
Just
right.
love that immediate coping that you see from MAGA land.
That's right. And shout out to the Virginia folks who are rolling right over to trying to redistrict within
Yes.
Virginia. Oh my goodness, that is the spirit. Pennsylvania, folks in Pennsylvania have been raising the alarm about this risk of the retention vote for Supreme Court Democratic Supreme Court justices. This was a place where we saw Republicans do some shenanigans. They started putting up signs that said "No kings, no retention." They were trying to actually use the brand that you created to pull some tricks. That did not work. All three of those judges were retained, in part thanks again to the extraordinary grassroots push. Sweep of Bucks County top row offices for the first time ever. Executive races in Erie, Lehigh, Northampton. Huge big wins in key places. Georgia.
I wonder how John Fetterman feels like seeing that no king's energy in his backyard, seeing massive results all across Pennsylvania as he's appearing on Fox News and talking about how the Democratic Party's
I
lost.
wonder how Scott Perry and Brian Fitzpatrick feel, because they're coming up for office, or they're coming up for re-election a little sooner.
Indeed.
Georgia, statewide win for the public utility regulators. These are the first non-federal statewide wins since 2 decades, I think. I want to say
2006.
2006.
Yeah,
Okay,
almost 20
decades,
years.
2 decades. Yes, extraordinary, and a huge sign of what is possible in the statewide races in Georgia in just a year.
John Ossoff up for re-election next year. Got to be
Georgia
feeling pretty
governor.
good about that. Yeah.
New York. Shout out to everybody who was out knocking doors from Mamdani. And yes, amazing, incredible. I don't know how many people were able to catch the victory speech. It was
Incredible.
It was extraordinary. It was, look, an incredible testament to what is possible and how you can reach voters who don't believe in the system if you have got that combination of really clear messaging, real credibility, real ability, real creativity, and joy in your outreach. And if you're really standing for something, just extraordinary work.
There's a lot to say on Mamdani. I bet we'll have some questions on it.
Yes.
One thing that has really struck me is he won young men by 40 points. 40 points. I mean, look, in Virginia and New Jersey, we won young men as well, but it's by like a third that margin. I can't tell you how many think pieces, how many monologues I saw in the political world on, oh my gosh, we're losing young men. There's no way to get them back. How do we get a Joe Rogan of the left? And here we have a politician that is actually inspiring people to show up to vote and to become part of our coalition again. I think we got a lot to learn, but God, that is such a bright spot.
I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, we've got a lot. Okay, yes, yes.
We have got in Mississippi. They broke the Republican supermajority. Incredible. I know we've got a bunch of new Mississippi groups who've started just in the last year, and some folks who've been keeping the faith alive for a long time. This is an amazing testament to the power of organizing in red places. Big local wins in South Carolina, Florida, Connecticut, North Carolina. I've got to shout out my personal favorite stat of the night, which is that every single one of Moms for Liberty's candidates nationwide for school board all lost. Shout out to everybody who was involved in that.
Remember when they were such a scary force? They were menacing communities all across the country. They seemed like they had the energy, that they were building the power. And look, they're just falling straight on their face time after time after time.
People don't want it. That is what you see across the board. This was a
the anti-trans attacks in Virginia were just crazy. They were just wall-to-wall coverage because the Republicans think that this is the play. And look, I think there are a lot of quote unquote smart political operatives out there that said, "Oh, we've got to throw trans kids under the bus. Like that's the path forward. We can't afford to show up for them." And what we saw on the election night last night is no, that's bullshit. That is a maybe an understandable read from a prior version of politics. That's not where we are. That does not work. You do not need to throw people out of this coalition in order to win.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. Well, and I'll pull back the lens, and Ezra, you'll talk a little bit about the connection between protest and elections. But this was an extraordinary, historic rejection of Trump, of MAGA, of enablers in all forms. This is an across the board repudiation of what has been happening in this country for the last year. And I think it really goes to something that we've been talking about for a long time, which is that a lot of elites have collapsed. A lot of politicians got scared and tried to kind of fold in and collaborate with Donald Trump in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party. A lot of businesses, a lot of law firms, a lot of higher education institutions, all of those people were like, oh crap, Donald Trump's going to win. I better make my peace with that and do what I need to do to get on board with his coalition. Regular people didn't go with that.
Yeah.
They have been here all along, pushing back, first via hands off and no kings too, and now via using their votes. We've been here all along, reminding elected officials that they need to represent us. And I think we've got more of their attention this week than we did last week.
That's right. And look, I think there are a lot of journalists who are trying to say, is Mamdani or is Mikey Sherrill or is Abigail Spanberger, is that the Democratic Party now? And I think what we demonstrated is there was a very clear through line between all these elections. There is a big tent for the Democratic Party. There is a big tent anti-regime coalition, because if you look at what Mikey Sherrill did, if you look at Prop 50, if you look at Abigail Spanberger, if you look at Mamdani, plenty of differences in all these places, plenty of differences in the electorate, but a through line there is, we don't do kings, we are not backing this regime, we don't like what they're doing. And that's a coalition that wins nationwide. It wins from Georgia to Mississippi to California to Virginia to New York City. I'm excited. So I want to talk about where we're going in the immediate future after this a bit, Leah. So I haven't seen as much coverage of this. It's and I want to draw this connection as clearly as possible. And I think it's important for everybody on this call to understand this victory wasn't a victory of one individual candidate. It wasn't because of a specific campaign tactic that worked particularly well. It wasn't because of one specific policy idea. It wasn't one geography. This was across the board. So what explains an across the board massive win like this? And I say massive, the only thing I can tell you is in 8 years, now nine plus years of Indivisible, this was the best election night we've ever had. Full stop. There has not been a stronger result on election night than Tuesday night. So what accounts for that? 2.5 weeks before the election, we had the largest peaceful protest in American history. 2.5 weeks before. That's no accident. The coalition knew that we might be in shutdown, and the coalition knew that these elections were coming out. Those are not disconnected events, y'all. And this isn't just me as a No Kings organizer and advocate. This isn't just Indivisible who is behind this, that's trying to make this argument. There is sturdy political science research connecting peaceful organizing and protest to election outcomes. That is a finding in political science. If people are interested, I will send it around. There's a landmark study looking at the Tea Party. So this is on the other side. They use this interesting research method where they looked at Tea Party tax day protests where there wasn't rain and where there was rain. So there were bigger protests where there was nice weather. And they said, how does a larger event impact future elections? And for the Tea Party and later research for the Women's March, what they find is when you have masses of people coming together against the regime, what it does is it has a knock-on effects for the next election. So when you have the largest peaceful protest in American history 2.5 weeks before elections around the country, and then what you see is mass rejection of the regime in those elections, those events are very connected. So I hope everybody who showed up in hands off, everybody who showed up in No Kings 1, everybody who showed up in No Kings 2, understands that the victories we saw on Tuesday flow from that organizing. It is a direct connection. So this is why we've been telling people all year, do not wait until GOTV. Do not wait until the week before the election to get out. The work we are doing to organize in the weeks and months leading up to the election, this is how we build the win. By the time of Tuesday night, we had spent months building towards that win, and the proof is in the pudding. Other thing I want to say, Tuesday was a general election, y'all. The primaries had been over by that point, and we rallied around all of the Democratic nominees. We were cheering on a Mikey Sherrill. We were cheering on an Abigail Spanberger. We were cheering on a Mamdani, because at that point, your choice is the general election candidate versus the fascist. That's the choice once you get to the general election. And I don't care what your disagreements are with the Democrat on economic policy or healthcare policy or education policy. Once you're at the general election, the choice is clear, and you got to put aside your concerns and line up behind. Most people in our coalition did that. I think a very clear exception was Chuck Schumer, the senior most leader of the Democratic Party, refused to endorse the Democratic nominee for mayor in his own damn city. I think it's inexcusable, Leah. I just don't know what else to say. It was shocking to me. I knew I knew he was against Mamdani. I thought as a political animal, he would have seen the writing on the wall and finally come out behind him. I'm frankly shocked that he never even could admit that what I believe is true, actually, that he probably voted for Cuomo. That is my guess based on how he engaged here. Shocking behavior. But most of us, we rally behind the winner, and the results are there. They were incredible results. That was the general election, y'all. General election is almost over. There's one more general election coming up in about a month, and I got to call her out. Afton Bain, who is a former Indivisible organizer. She was an organizer for Tennessee. She has since gone on to bigger and greater things. She is a state rep in Tennessee, and she is in a special election in Tennessee's 7th. So I'm calling this out because Indivisible National and the Indivisible groups in Tennessee are very behind her. This is a tough seat, but not an impossible seat. This is not an impossible seat. This is a Republican leaning seat, a red seat, but one that we can win. One that we can win. And Afton is an incredible candidate. She is an incredible candidate. So we're going to post information about Afton. You're going to see Indivisibles certainly on the ground and us talking about her. We really hope she pulls it out. I think it's quite exciting to have such an excellent candidate in a special election. That is taking place next month in December because it's a special election. But that's the general election. Where do we go next? Next is primary season, y'all. And I want to signpost right now that Indivisible is going to be leaning in on primaries. We are leaning in on primaries because primaries are a healthy venue for rebuilding the Democratic Party into a fighting, winning machine. And that's what we need right now. It is a problem that you've got the least popular political figure in the country, Chuck Schumer, leading the Democratic opposition. That is problematic. It is a problem that the Democratic Party has a lower approval rating than the fascist party. That is not good. It is a problem that the knee-jerk instinct of many Democrats is to find common ground with this regime rather than figure out how to coalesce around a fight-back posture. And that's a problem you solve in primaries. I don't know how these primaries are going to shake out. And after the primaries are over, you bet your ass I'm going to rally around whoever wins, even if they're not my favorite. But in the primaries, this is how we demand the party that we need. Because we don't just need to win. We need candidates who are committed to taking on this regime. We are going to take the House. We're going to take the Senate. And on January 3rd of 2027, I need subpoenas to fly. I need hearings. I need ICE agents who are committing crimes. I need federal officials who are violating the Constitution to face consequences immediately. Not in 2029 when Trump is out of office, not in the next time there's a Democratic trifecta. That needs to happen immediately. And that's not going to happen unless we demand the party that we need to do that. So the way Indivisible works, we are a movement organization. It's not like Leah and I pick out our favorites and we say, okay, that's the Indivisible candidate. It's never going to work like that. So we need to move with the movement. So what you're going to see from us, and the reason why we're bringing this up now, is you're going to see a lot of listening and talking about this. So you're going to see us talking with Indivisible groups, talking with the movement writ large, and trying to assess where the movement is and where they want to go and how we can coalesce to have an impact in these primaries. So this is going to kick off first with a strategy session with Indivisible group leaders next week. So we do a monthly group leader conversation. We call it the strategy sync. If you are an Indivisible group leader, I'm speaking specifically to group leaders, and you haven't been yet, you're welcome. It's every month. It's an open conversation kind of like this, but with a specific topic. Next week, it's going to be the primaries. So if this is something you're interested in and you're an Indivisible group leader, get in touch with your local organizer if you don't already have an invite, or look out for the group leader email that comes out regularly, and there will be an invite there. So we hope to engage you there. You're going to see some surveys, you're going to see some questions, and we're going to try to align around how we can move forward together to demand the party that we need right now. And I'm excited to do it, y'all. I've never been more optimistic for a primary season. I think there's a lot of good energy out there to demand something better. And I think we can get it in this primary season. And then you know what we're going to do? We're going to wall up them in the midterms, and this administration, this regime, these federal officials who are breaking the law and breaking the Constitution, they're going to face consequences, and the harm they're doing is going to stop because the Democrats we elect to the Senate and the House are going to stop it. That's the plan. We've taken up more time than normal, so I think we should get to questions. Leah, other thoughts on primaries?
Let's go to questions.
Okay, y'all. We're going to go to primaries. I think if we haven't already, we'll link Afton's new ad also in the chat.
Going in the chat.
Oh, we got it in the chat. It's so good. It's so good. Okay, going to the questions, a reminder, you can ask them and then vote for them. There's a little Q&A button right at the bottom, and we just go through top to bottom, the most voted. Kim asks, Leah, where's our leverage to pressure Mike Johnson to call the House back if he continues to refuse to do his job? Is there a realistic path towards getting him fired as Speaker?
So that's a great question. Here's what I would say. The thing that members of House leadership, the thing that members of party leadership are most accountable to is their own members. And so the way that we're going to pressure Mike Johnson, and particularly they're folks who have to get reelected in tough districts, they're frontliners. The way we are going to pressure Mike Johnson is we're going to create so much outrage around him and in the districts of those targeted folks and in the kind of general surround sound ecosystem that the people he is accountable to, his members, are coming to him and saying, I am getting killed out here because of the decisions that you are making. I am losing my own popularity, my standing in district, my credibility. I need you to do something different or else I'm going to lose. That is the path to moving him. I will say this is also an almost unique situation. I don't think we've ever seen a Speaker of the House who is so visibly simply a tool of the president. Part of our analysis right now is that we're in the stage of authoritarian consolidation where a lot of elected officials are functionally more afraid of Donald Trump than they are of some of the normal tools and incentives that we use. That doesn't mean we don't continue to push on those buttons. That doesn't mean we don't continue to do the accountability and the pushing on the public representation of what they're doing. But it does mean that he's already behaving pretty irrationally by the normal standards of politics. Like the Republicans right now understand that they are getting killed out here, right? Like they understand that they are suffering politically for every day that they remain on shutdown. Donald Trump just told everyone that it was because of the shutdown that that they lost the election.
I love
So
that.
they understand that they have a bad hand.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah.
It's
Briefly.
amazing what Trump did. He basically validated our entire strategy.
Yeah, so this is wild, y'all. So Donald Trump, the night of the election, he's out there tweeting, and then the next morning he goes in and talks to the Senate or the House. I can't remember. He goes in and talks to Republican legislators, and he's like, yeah, it's because of the shutdown. We're really suffering because of the shutdown. We should end that. Which is just extraordinary, right? Like we all collectively worked to push Democrats to understand that they needed to take a stand, that they couldn't sign a blank check for
Yep.
Donald Trump's law breaking and attacks on our families and communities. They took that stand. The public agreed with them. We went into an election and we wiped the floor with them. And now Donald Trump is saying, oh gosh, we got to back out of this. That is an extraordinary series of events. And everybody who's here was part of making it happen.
Can I say, in the days leading up to the shutdown, in the days leading up to the election on Tuesday, the conventional wisdom inside DC circles was that Democrats were getting ready to surrender.
Yeah.
They were getting ready to cut a deal with Trump and Republicans that would basically give them everything that they wanted, maybe for some little piecemeal proposal from the Republicans, but nothing real. And the catastrophic results for Republicans in the election shifted the plans. They shifted the plans because what they demonstrated was that Republicans were rightfully taking the blame for the shutdown and were taking on political water for prolonging the shutdown. That doesn't mean that we're going to prevent Democrats from surrendering, but what it does mean is that the work that we are doing that's actually producing results is changing what is politically possible, and Trump himself is acknowledging it, which is incredible. Unfortunately, there is no neat trick we can use to make Mike Johnson stop being a piece of shit, stop being just a brown noser for Donald Trump. He's going to continue doing that. What we can do is continue organizing to make his political coalition as weak as possible, and that's what we're doing. We're going to get her seated eventually. She's going to be the 218th vote on the discharge petition so we can get the Epstein files vote. That is going to happen. I think Mike Johnson is just making it harder on himself and his caucus the longer he drags this out. Leah, Cynthia asks, instead of Black Friday spending, we should have a No Kings Donates Day where we collect food, toiletries, pet supplies, cash donations, etc. for folks who need help. We're already doing this, but how awesome would it be to have one day where we knock it out of the park and draw massive attention to our cause instead of the usual Black Friday capitalist bacchanalia that usually happens on that day. Millions of No Kings people making donations in one 24-hour period would send one hell of a message. Can you talk about both, one, the current joint No Kings Coalition action of this week and last week, and two, How much can we share about Black Friday plans?
I'll share.
Okay, Leah will share what we can.
Okay, so first, if you are following the No Kings Alliance, this is our ongoing rapid response arm for No Kings. Last week and this week, we are pushing for mutual aid actions. So donations to pantries, fundraising, whatever we, food drives, whatever we can collectively do to support our communities, to support people who are impacted by the shutdown, like federal workers who are not getting paychecks, to support folks who are dependent on SNAP or other forms of federal assistance. We want to make sure that we are collectively, as the No Kings movement, showing up in our communities because, fundamentally, what we are seeing here is this massive failure of governance, massive failure of the Republican Party to execute on any of the basic functions of caring for its people. Failure or refusal is probably the more appropriate way to say that. And what we need to show is that we show up for each other. So I'm really with you on the idea. What I would say on the kind of specifics of that is some feedback that we have gotten from across the movement for various other holidays is that holidays that involve a lot of travel are not great days to organize or push for events that involve getting your group together, because for like the very obvious reason that Indivisible leaders themselves are traveling or they are hosting family, and one reason or another they are not in a great position to like have that be the day when they run the event. They're disconnecting, their email list is somewhere else, and because they are with their family in a different state, etc. And so we are really exploring some digital actions and some kind of collective framing that we can have across the movement for Black Friday to make that a continued day of defiance and a weekend of community care. So stay tuned. We will have more for you on that very, very soon. I cannot officially announce it now, but trust me that we are tracking the date.
Yes, there's some good planning going on, so
Yeah.
we'll be part of something big there. Just a note, because we're talking about economic pressure, quick update on Spotify that I thought I saw people asking. As you know, if you were tracking before, Spotify is currently running ICE recruitment ads. It's atrocious. It's playing in between music and in between podcasts as well. I heard this from some podcast friends that ICE recruitment ads are actually playing on their shows as well. Incredible. I also don't know. There was a video I saw earlier this week of a woman in a pre-K, in a childcare center / pre-K, who was a worker there, a mom of two, dragged out by ICE from a pre-K.
In front of the kids.
In front of the kids.
In
There
front of
were
the kids.
armed agents inside the pre-K looking for this mom and then dragging her out. This is what Spotify is recruiting for right now. So this is why we are boycotting Spotify. We're trying to replicate the success of the Disney pressure. 90% of Spotify's revenue comes from subscriptions, not ads, from subscriptions. So we are encouraging folks to Spotify, to boycott Spotify, and check out the campaign. We're doing this. Working Families Party is doing this. Move On is doing this. There are a lot of folks who are doing it, and this is building. You should look forward to a day of action coming forward soon. We are going to be doing more work. We are not letting go of this. If you need support to help quit Spotify, we have some suggestions for you. If you need to figure out how to transfer your playlists, it is easy to do. It is important that we not support economic actors that are actively supporting this regime. Spotify is a good case study of that. They're not the only bad actor, but they're a bad actor that depends on us to continue doing what they're doing. We don't have to give them that support. So just wanted to plug the Spotify campaign. More to come. We're not letting it go. Amy asks, are there any plans to launch a campaign to urge / pressure governors and state legislatures in blue trifecta states to redistrict, to fight fire with fire, to counter Trump and Republican gerrymandering? Mark Elias, love him, said in one of his videos, if you live in a blue state, you need to get off their asses.
Get on their asses.
Oh, you need to get
Get
on
on,
their
yeah.
asses. Yes. Leah, we've been talking a
Yeah.
bit about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the short version is there's ongoing effort by a number of different folks in states where this would work. Not every blue state has extra congressional seats that can be redistricted in a more efficient way, and so it doesn't work for everyone. Not every blue state has parameters that allow them to move it before 2026. The places that we are tracking where there's possibility are Virginia, as I mentioned, where there's possibility to redistrict this
Yes.
cycle. Maryland and Illinois. Ezra, correct me if I'm leaving any out for this cycle.
For this cycle, New Jersey and New York are longer term.
Right.
They're just there are barriers to doing it, but we could do it in the future.
Right. And do you want to talk about the Maryland campaign?
I'm pissed off about Maryland. Can I just say, y'all, Maryland is a deep blue state. We have a blue trifecta. There is a Democratic governor, a Democratic legislature. About a week ago, the Democratic Senate leader in Maryland said, yeah, we're not going to do redistricting. I don't want to do it. I mean, he released a report, a memo saying, yeah, we've decided not to do it. This has pissed off a lot of folks across the state, not just grassroots folks. There are a lot of elected officials who were
The governor.
including the governor and including some high-profile Democratic leaders in Maryland who said, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, look at what they're doing in Texas. Look at what they're doing in Missouri. Look at what they're doing in Indiana. Obviously, we need to fight back." When I talk about needing a party that fights back, this is what I mean. We get the party that we demand, and so we can either accept a feckless Democratic Senate leader, whether it's in Maryland or the U.S. Senate, or we can demand something better. And there's a time right now to demand something better in Maryland. So if you were a Marylander, we brought together an emergency group of Maryland Indivisible groups to talk about how we can run a campaign to push back against. Shortly after that, the governor announced that he's opening up a commission to study this, which opens up the door to do redistricting before. That is good forward momentum, but it's not a done deal. We need to make it untenable for the Democratic Senate majority leader in Maryland to maintain that position. And the out is clear. One of the things that the Senate majority leader said was, well, look, I've been talking to Republicans in other states, and they tell me the reason why they aren't gerrymandering is because Maryland is holding the line. And if we move forward, then they will move forward. One of the states he mentioned was Indiana. Within, I don't know, a day, maybe even before he mentioned this in the letter, the governor of Indiana announced a special session where they were moving forward to gerrymander. So it's easy. He has an out now. The Maryland Senate Majority Leader has an out. He could say, look, I was not for this, but now that Indiana is moving forward a partisan gerrymander, we're not going to sit on the sidelines. We are going to respond in kind. If you don't do that, you are part of the problem. You should get out of elected office. He is up for re-election next term. I don't care if he's primaried. I don't care if he's kicked out of leadership. I don't care if he changes his position, but it's got to be one of those things. It's got to be one of those things. And if it's not one of those outcomes, it's on us, y'all, because we're not doing the work necessary to demand the party we need.
I do also just want to give a shout out to the folks who are in red states who are holding down really terrific fights against these partisan redistricting efforts in those red areas. I know there are a bunch of Indiana folks who are actively pushing back on that special session, the redistricting effort there. A redistricting effort in Kansas failed this week. You know, not all of these are going through, and they are not going through because of some combination of they don't have the votes, they're scared of the after effects, et cetera, et cetera. And some of that is public pressure within these states. So shout out to everybody who's holding down that fight.
1000%. Okay, Eric's got a question. Orchard City Indivisible, San Jose, California. The reps now know they can't win fair elections. They're now a wild animal backed into a corner, like every fascist regime that's challenged by people who stand up for democracy. The MAGA Nazis Project 2025ers will soon launch a furious attack, most likely against immigration, non-white, non-mainstream communities, escalating detentions and deportations, and against fair elections, including the 26 midterms. Yesterday, the White House announced it will prepare EOs to change how U.S. elections are run. 2 days ago, we saw them roll out DOJ Elections Monitor. So what's Indivisible's strategy and tactics to protect and preserve fair elections nationwide starting now? I think this is, Eric, you're not saying anything we disagree with here.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the mantra that we're going to use going forward, right? They are going to try to steal the election. They've already started trying to steal the election. It's not going to work because we are going to out-organize them, but they're trying, right? And so we want to hold those two things at the same time, which is just being really clear that they don't intend to have this be a normal midterm year. They are going to try to rig the rules at every step of the way. They are going to try to intimidate. They are going to try to suppress votes. They're going to try to gerrymander their way into a majority that is not actually sustained by the will of the people. And if they do not get what they want on the outside, they're going to try to obtain it on the back end via sabotage. We're all really clear about that. Also, it's not going to work because we are collectively going to be pushing back using all of the tools in the toolbox at every step in the process to try to guarantee as close to a level playing field as possible, with all appropriate caveats about whether US elections have ever been like free and fair by any reasonable standard. And we're going to build the kind of popular mass mobilization muscle that is necessary on the back end to resist and repel any sabotage effort. That is the plan for next year. That is like, we are going to be asking ourselves at every step in the process, what do we need to do to be ready when they try to sabotage the election in October, in November next year? We're going to be trying to build out the plan to be ready for that. I am not going to give you the full plan right now. What I will say is it's going to be some combination of kind of rapid response election protection along the way. Obviously, everything that you mentioned here is also something that's going to get challenged in court left and right. But we want to be the like popular outrage arm. Some of this is going to be about raising the alarm in advance and raising the alarm and being really clear that they know they're going to lose, and that is why they are trying to steal it, right? Because we're not going to give them power they don't have. This is a regime that understands that it has already spent its political capital and that the only way it can stay in power is by rigging the rules. And then we're going to build that popular mobilization muscle to push back.
Well, here's the thing that we know. So we talk to a lot of authoritarian experts. That's our frame of mind right now, right? We're talking to a lot of these experts in authoritarianism, watching how authoritarianism plays out in other countries in the world. And a hinge point for that authoritarian concentration of power is usually a national election.
Yeah.
That is the point at which you actually choose, are you sliding fully into authoritarianism, or does democracy reassert itself? So when you're pointing to the midterms as, well, clearly they're not just going to allow us to win, you're right. That is where they are going to try to win. So then back out from that. If what we need to do is massive public response immediately after the election, how do we get there? And that is what we are doing here. So we engage in redistricting in a state like Maryland or a state like California where we can, so we can make the rules as equal as they possibly can. We engage in a Democratic primary that starts building a party that people can believe in and that is a fight back party, so that they are prepared to push back against the regime. Then come the general election, we build a massive wave of turnout that is impossible to ignore, ramp up the numbers that we get. Our margins need to be enormous. I don't want to win the House by 1 or 2 or 3. I want it by 10 or 20. They can steal one election. It's harder to steal 24 elections. And then afterwards, we show up in mass numbers, which we have spent the year of 2025 and then 2026 building up with hands off, and then No Kings 1, and then No Kings 2, and then economic campaigns like Black Friday or Spotify, and then additional No Kings in 2026. So that come November of 2026, not only have we turned out at historic margins, a wave like we saw this week, we are there in mass to say, you are in no way going to get away with stealing this election, because we're not going to put up with it. The specific tactics, yeah, we'll talk about, but that's the arc of the next 12 months from us, from our point of view. That's how we get democracy to reassert itself. Great question, and it's a key question on our mind. Chelsea asks, please talk about how we can build a winning opposition party of Democrats in the primaries, which is what y'all said at the end of last week. So what's the plan? I'll admit I've never been that engaged in primaries, so I don't know much about the process. I'd specifically like to know, when does primary season start? Is it now? And what are the concrete ways or examples that we can build the party we want through primaries as individuals and in our groups? Chelsea, I didn't plant this question, but this is like an incredible, perfect question for right now. Leah, let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so depending on where you live, primary season may be kind of just kicking off or already really in full swing.
Yep.
It just depends. The earliest primaries are like February, March of next year. Some of them don't happen until August or even September, I believe. So it depends a little bit about where you are. What I would say is start to think about who is in your district, who is representing you in Congress, who is going to be on the ballot next year, and start looking at the races, and just getting an assessment of the candidates and how they have, what their record is. If you've got somebody who's been in office, the most immediate piece of this is going to be everybody having their own assessment of their local conditions, right? Like that's step one, because as mentioned, we're not going to like come in and say that's the indivisible candidate without really deep and intensive conversations with people who are actually, the constituents in a district or in a state. So that's the first step. But Ezra, do you want to talk a little bit about like what we're thinking for our own programming?
Yeah. So just some 101 on this is every single member of House, Republican, Democrat, Independent, is up for re-election this cycle, which means next November they're going to be in a general election. Sometime before next November, sometime in the spring or the summer, or maybe early fall, they'll also face a primary in their own party. And that's when the Democrats are going to go to Democratic primary voters and say, hey, I want to be your nominee for the general election. And they either win or they don't win. And then there's a general election. So the primary is the chance to say, well, is this a rollover and play dead Democrat, or is this a fight back faction Democrat? And that could be for an open seat, like somebody is retired or move on to higher office, or it could be for a competitive primary where there is a sitting incumbent who maybe has been in office for years or decades who isn't fighting back the way we need them to. And there's a challenger that arises. In some cases, these challengers have already stepped forward and said, yeah, I'm going to challenge this Democrat who I don't think is doing a good job. And in some cases, they haven't announced yet. Mark Warner is a senator who's up for re-election. I don't know if he's going to get a challenger or not yet. He doesn't yet. And there's still time for him to get a challenger. There are House members that have retired, and there's a healthy primary that's being engaged in right now. And then there are others that we'll see if they get challengers. What I would advise everybody to do is, one, yes, be aware of your local conditions, but recognize only a relatively small percentage of people are going to live in a district where you've got both a Democrat and a Democrat where there is a challenger and a challenger where it's going to make sense to engage. This is going to be more of a targeted race, a targeted campaign nationwide than literally every single Democrat gets a primary challenger, every single Republican. That's probably not how it's going to play out. In general, the way we are thinking about this is, especially in safe Democratic states and safe Democratic districts, I think that's the place that is the best ground for engaging in this kind of fight. I'm not interested in taking out a vulnerable Democrat with a untested challenger. I think that decreases the chances that we win in the general election. What I am interested in is in a safe blue district or safe blue state where you've got a senator or a rep who has been in office for years, who isn't fighting back now, who is trying to capitulate to the regime. Yeah, you're damn right I'm interested in new leadership. They don't own those seats. It's going to be up to us collectively, whether we live in those districts or we don't, to say, that's one that I want to get engaged in because I'm excited about that challenger. Or in this open primary race, I'm excited about that particular candidate. I also think it's important for us to be able to identify what is the distinguishing factor that allows you to tell the difference between somebody who's kind of an establishment rollover and play dead Democrat and one who's actually going to fight back. And that might be different by state, but there might be some things that we can all collectively say, yeah, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this set of things. So this is what the conversation we're going to be engaging with Indivisibles is going to be about, to try to come together collectively around both candidates and an orientation towards these primaries, with the goal, again, of building a Democratic brand that people can believe in and a Democratic Party that will actually fight back. We might win, we might lose, but it is an effort worth engaging in, and it's going to strengthen the party for us to be engaging in this way. And then after this, here's the really, really important thing. We are going to get very serious about primaries. We're going to develop strong connections with some of these candidates, and some of them are going to lose. Some of them are going to lose to Democrats that we don't like very much. And you know what we're going to do afterwards? We're going to rally around those Democrats to make sure they beat the fascists, because that is how we build a winning coalition. So I do think it's really important to think of these as two separate time periods. There's the primary where we fight for the Democratic Party we need, and then the general election where we put the past arguments aside and say, okay, we're all on one team. It is okay to have strong opinions in the primary. It's good to have strong opinions in the primary. And then we got to be big kids, put on our big kid pants, and move forward to the general election. That is our orientation for next year. Anything else?
You got it.
Okay, great.
Nope.
So many winners, this is from Gilda, so many winners' speeches on November 4th used no king's language when referring to Trump. Wouldn't it be great if the no king symbol, just the symbol with no words, could become ubiquitous across America to help grow this grassroots movement on car bumpers, t-shirts, hats, buttons, bandanas, maybe? Leah, thoughts about the iconography of no kings?
Yeah, we love where you're going with this. We're really supportive of that, and we're trying to do some things to seed it. Not necessarily just the symbol, the phrase, the symbol, the emoji version of the symbol. like this isn't all of the above strategy. We're pretty realistic about the fact that some things kind of take off and develop a life of their own and some things don't. And you can't just like cook it up in a lab and say that's the thing that's gonna work. You gotta try a bunch of stuff and see what gets legs and what people like and what starts to show up organically. So like for example, we've heard from a lot of people about whistles becoming a really big symbol of popular resistance because of the roles of whistles in communities that are being targeted by ICE in alerting communities to the threat and to the danger. So scaling that out is a great example. Another great example that we're all very aware of are the Portland frogs, right? Like I would not have expected heading into this season that, a giant inflatable frogs were going to be a symbol of resistance.
Love it.
I love that,
Yeah.
So I think we've got to do a combination of like top down designing things in a way that they can be picked up, they can be run with, people can put their own spin on it. Like No Kings, right? It's a simple slogan. You can have, I've seen different designs, not just the crown that we use for our logo, but other people's interpretations of that. That's good. We want it to be something that people can kind of pick up and make their own. You and I have talked about all of the great No Kings songs that are out there right now. If you go through TikTok and look for No Kings songs, you're going to find some pretty great content.
Yeah.
So we want it to be kind of a free flowing, everyone picks it up and runs with it, let a thousand flowers bloom kind of strategy here where people can go with what part of it moves them. I personally continue to try to push the emojis in your handle. I don't know if it's gonna totally catch on, but I love it. Like the little red X emoji and the little crown. You can do that today if you want. But again, it's just gonna be some things will take off, some things won't. But we're definitely achieving cultural penetration.
The other thing I would say is the No Kings logo, you can take it and use it how you want.
Yeah.
Like this is available to the public. So if
Right.
you have interesting ideas of how to use that, more power to you. Do it, do something creative.
Make your own shirts.
Yeah, make your own. Yeah, don't
I
pay.
mean, you can buy our shirts
You can
too.
buy our
They're
shirts
really
if you
good.
want. I love our shirts, but you can also make your own. You use it how you want. This should be grassroots. This shouldn't just be feeding into some donation bucket. I know our team is going to be like, why
I
did
was
you tell
gonna
them
say
not
we're
to buy
gonna
our shirts?
our shirts are really good. You should also
They're
buy our
union
shirts.
they're
They're
union made
union-made,
shirts,
yeah.
so they're good shirts. But again, you can take the logo yourself, y'all. Okay, Casey. Okay, we're gonna hear from Sarah on that. Okay.
Okay.
Casey says, my spouse is a federal employee and a veteran. We both understand and fully support the importance that the Dems holding the line right now, but it is also so hard feeling like feds' lives are being used as collateral in this fight, especially as the second full missed paycheck is looming. Do you have any words of encouragement for feds right now? We are in this for the long haul, but I'm sure a lot of feds could use some cheering on or support at the moment. This has been extremely challenging year for them. Thanks. And
Yeah.
to everyone reading, please check in on your feds if you can. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
Casey, thank you for asking this. And I both thank you. Thanks to your spouse for their service. Thank you for raising this question. And I'm really sorry that your family is one of those that is being directly targeted by this regime. And as part of the damage that it is doing, it's awful. I mean, it is really awful, and it is getting worse as people miss not just one, but their second paycheck. So I hear that and don't want to just treat this as like a political football or a game to win a couple of votes, because that's not what this is. Sorry,
Yeah.
Leah, you go ahead.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not fair. It's not fair. It's
Yeah.
not right. Federal workers deserve so much more respect and so much more decent treatment than they have gotten this year, all the way through, right? I mean, we're both people who came out of the public policy world. We have a lot of friends who they were at USAID, they
Yeah.
were at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They had, their jobs eliminated and people taking aim at their life's work at the same moment. And it's just a series of extraordinarily cruel and disrespectful and wrongheaded attacks on both people and the things that they stood for and represented, and often made major personal sacrifices in order to do that work. So just to first of all say, we're sorry that you are going through this. We're fighting for the kind of world where your spouse is treated decently and has the respect that they are due as somebody who is in federal service. I think that's the first and most important point is like we are the folks who are really ultimately fighting for a federal government that is able to fulfill its mission with people who are treated with the respect that they deserve. And we're all being put in a really horrible position because this administration has basically pulled out every possible stop to do as many illegal as many unconstitutional, as many disrespectful of the powers of the purse actions as they possibly can. And we have been put in this position of using the tools that are available to us in a period where they are blowing through all of the checks and balances that they possibly can. And what we're doing is using those in order to try to get back to the position where they start to respect some of the basic checks and balances that are supposed to be part of the system, where they don't just go through and fire a bunch of people at USAID or CFPB because they feel like it, right? Like where they actually respect the ways in which they are supposed to use money that is appropriated by Congress, where they treat workers according to the laws that they're supposed to be bound by. And where they're actually treating the federal government like it has an important mission to fulfill to help support us and keep us safe and deliver on the things that give us good and dignified lives in this country. It's not very satisfying. I just want to say, it's not very satisfying to be in this position and saying, like, what we ultimately hope we can get to is a better place for federal employees and for all of us. And also, I wish we had a different strategy. I really do. Or I wish we had a different path, but
I
the
wish
only
we had
way
a
out is
different.
through.
I wish we had a different path, and unfortunately, capitulating to the regime is not the path. Because if you prove to them that there are no consequences for them doing harm to the American people and to federal workers, they're going to do more harm.
Oh, I think it's, I mean, I actually think
yeah.
it's worse than that.
Yeah.
Their entire strategy right now is to inflict extra harm on people
Yeah.
as a bargaining chip because they
Yes.
know that Democrats are more historically sensitive
Yes.
to pain and suffering than Republicans are. They are currently
Yep.
breaking the law to try to not to avoid feeding children,
To
right?
starve children.
Yeah, to starve children. That is a strategy, and it is intended to inflict the kind of pain that causes Democrats to feel like they have to go back to the negotiating table. What happens if you give in that moment is that they take the lesson that causing more harm to vulnerable populations is a good way to get what they want.
That's right. God, seeing Josh Hawley out there, the smarmy bastard who says, oh gosh, it's such a shame that the children might have to starve, including in Missouri, if only Democrats would give in. I mean, Leah, what you're saying is exactly right. They are starving children to say, well, if only Democrats weren't doing this, but they're making the choice. They are making the choice to cause that harm. I think we're going to win this fight, y'all. I think we're going to win this fight. I don't think the Republican position is tenable. They are being rightfully blamed for this. They are losing elections because of it. And we just produced both the largest voter turnout that we've seen in an off year and the largest peaceful protest in American history. The federal workers are going to get back to their jobs, and we're going to prove that when you fight back, you win. And if we don't win this, if the Democrats do surrender, we're going to build the kind of Democratic Party that does actually fight back.
That's right.
Again, sorry, Casey, though. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of this fight. Deborah asks, since there was a wonderful blue wave, is this making the Republican lawmakers more inclined to stand up to Trump? Are they feeling the heat from constituents? How can we pick off House and Senate Republicans to resist? This is Deb from South County Resistance in Wakefield, Rhode Island.
The short answer is we are definitely hearing whispers along those lines. We are hearing about nervous House Republicans. We are seeing some very grouchy senators. You know, you could never go broke betting on Republicans to fold and do what Trump wants, right?
Yeah.
Like that's been a pretty consistent theme of the last 8 years, and I think it's unlikely that it's going to, reverse completely in the next week or so. But we're definitely hearing the kind of like behind the scenes whispers of people who are pretty freaked out. The like real beauty of what happened is that a lot of people who thought that they were in safe seats are now a little nervous. Like, oh, the frontliners are always nervous, right? The people who are in genuinely contested battleground seats. But there's some people who are in Trump +7 seats right now who are like, oh, those margins are a little more intense than I expected, right? And so that actually can create some unexpected ripple effects over a little bit of time.
Yeah. And also, I just don't trust the Republicans. The current crop of Republicans, I wish they would listen to that. And it seems like they are pretty dug in. It's an interesting political dynamic because normally the frontliners are worried enough about their job that you would see some fractures, but you're not quite seeing it yet. Mary from Indivisible Bellingham, Washington here. National Guard members are our neighbors. Can we do a nationwide campaign about talking to them about loyalty to the Constitution and the rule of law rather than Trump?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I think my short answer is that is exactly the kind of thing that you should be doing if you have relationships with people who are in the National Guard who are getting called up to be sent to blue cities. I don't know if we're the right people to run the bigger scale campaign, but it is a really good idea to try to give people like the tools for those conversations so that more of them can organically happen. That's always going to be best between people who've already got a pre-existing relationship, right? Like it's not me reaching out to a National Guard member, it's you, their neighbor. Um, but we can look into it and see if there's anyone that's got like some good resources on that.
There's a question from Steve about Republicans and getting them to fear voters instead of Trump. I think we covered that already. I know we're coming up on time, so I'm going to cover two more and then we're out. Lisa asks, I'm one of the leads of Indivisible Tucson boycott and build team. We are running a Don't Buy It campaign this month to encourage the use of collective economic power to save our democracy. Thanks, Spotify. How can we help? Will Indivisible be calling specific economic action for the holiday season? How can we best spread the word? So, Leah mentioned this earlier. Very soon we will have a Black Friday action coming up. It will not just be Indivisible and not just No Kings. There'll be like a broad coalition. So yes, we will be part of it. Would love if Tucson was part of it as well. And let's answer a question on, well, let's do, Leah, you're pointing to Michael. Let's do both Nancy and Michael real quick. Okay, so we're gonna do three. Okay, Snap and Epstein. Nancy asks, what do you think about holding some town hall meetings with or without House Republicans to ask, one, why did you vote to deny full SNAP funding, which charges your constituents? Two, why did you not vote to release the Epstein files, which protect pedophiles instead of children? That's Nancy from Indivisible FCCPR from Western Massachusetts. Love both of them. And beyond that, if I could wave a wand, I think I said this last week, I would have every single Democratic elected making a very big deal about supporting their community through mutual aid and other nutrition support. Go to your food bank, go to your local community support organizations, and show that you're out there, and ask where the hell the Republicans are actively voting to starve children. To your point, also, there was a vote just to make sure to direct the administration to follow the law and actually fund SNAP that Republicans voted against. Why? Because they want to starve children as a bargaining chip. That is why they voted against preventing the administration from starving children. Related to Epstein, yes, all the way. If you look at Afton Bain's campaign, one of her key arguments is she would vote to release the Epstein files, unlike her Republican opponent. We see this also from Grijalva. The reason why she is being deprived of her vote is because they are terrified that she's going to then be the deciding vote on Epstein. So we're all for it. We're pushing it. I think these are good campaign strategies. Michael, okay, last question. We've got Michael asking, I get at least a dozen emails each day asking for money. Most of them seem like good causes, but none of them explain how the money will be used. When I'm asked for money, I like to know how it will be spent and how the effect is measured. To just be asked for money because the other side gets more than we do strikes me not only as inept, but as an insult to my decision-making process. Shouldn't the people be asking for money explain how it will be used? If so, how do we let them know that? Ooh, Michael, I like this question.
I have several thoughts.
Yeah, let's share some thoughts.
Okay,
This is a good one to go out on.
We have a serious problem in the Democratic ecosystem with spam fundraising.
Yes.
Like this is, I don't know from your question who you're talking about, but I think in general, if you're like, I am getting texts and emails asking me for money, a good portion of those are spam packs that are like scam packs that are
They're bullshit.
They're bullshit. They are spending a bunch of money to raise a bunch of money that they then turn around and give to a consultant who also owns the pack, right? It's like a circular enrichment of the person who owns the pack.
Yep.
To run maybe some ads or do some consulting services. There are a lot of people who just get rich off of these appeals, and it's really shameful and it's really dangerous, and it creates a lot of cynicism about the people who are genuinely trying to do real political work. And frankly, a bunch of Democratic politicians on our side use the same consultants to like do their emails programs as well. If you get these like, Nancy Pelosi's crying because we've all lost kinds of emails, like those are all coming from a relatively short list of different consulting firms. And they're doing it because it's pretty effective in the short term. And in the long term, it's incredibly dangerous to civic trust and efficacy. So that's one thing. I will say in this specific situation, speaking as someone who runs a nonprofit, like we try to give you some real information about like what and how we're using money for. And also the reality is that in any given moment, like flexibility is the top and number one thing. And so, I can't say, give me, most of the time I would prefer that you give me open-ended funding so that I can dedicate it to the highest need at any given time versus giving me restricted funding for one specific purpose. So I would say, like, if you trust people and you're like aligned with a candidate and everything you've heard is that they're running a good campaign, the focus should not be on like exactly what are you using this money for. The focus should be on the overall appraisal of like, is the campaign good and generally headed in the right direction? And also, overall levels of skepticism are very warranted because we do have a serious scam problem.
I think that's a good way to think about it, Leah, which is there are a lot of scammers out there, so you shouldn't just give money to somebody who emails you and say, "I urgently need money."
Yeah.
And also, hopefully, you trust in a lot of candidates and you trust in a lot of organizations. Find the ones that you, through your own eyes, through like you witness and you see what they do, you see them doing meaningful work. Hopefully, when you look at Indivisible, like you get fundraising emails from us sometimes, but hopefully you see all of the organizing work we're doing and say, "Oh, they're legit. They're actually doing real stuff on the ground. They're worth investing in." We will from time to time send you an email saying we need money for XYZ, but that's not the only way we raise money. One of the best ways that we raise money is recurring donations
Yep.
that come in, which allow us to plan. That's like super helpful. So I think I'm just saying what Leah said, but
Yeah.
as a straight white dude, more confidently. So I really pulled
Exactly.
that one off. I don't think I think that. I think you nailed it, Leah. So everybody, that was the plan. I'm glad I caught myself there. It was like I have a point. No, that's really just Leah's point. Restated.
It can't be emphasized enough. There is a problem in the ecosystem, and also flexible early funds are really genuinely the most useful.
Yeah.
Both of those things are true.
Stay tuned. We do have some stuff cooking with a coalition on scam packs. Not yet ready for prime time, but I actually think this issue
Yeah.
in the fundraising ecosystem is something we should collectively take on together and say, there are good actors out there. You don't have to give to Indivisible. There are a lot of good actors out there, but there are a lot of bad actors too, and they poison the well for everybody else. And good, that's an additive point. Okay, with that, I'm gonna end. Okay, y'all, that was the plan. Ezra,
I'm Leah.
and we're going to see you next week. What an incredible week, y'all. We are building the
Congratulations.
movement. We are growing 3 million in April, 5 million in June, 7 million in October, the best election night in a decade. The fascists are on the run. They're quaking in their jackboots. We're just building further, stronger, faster. And it's just such a pleasure, such a joy. I'm so proud to be in this movement with all of y'all. See y'all again next week.